How did Nephilim survive floods? The Nephilim were there on earth, before the flood and also after the flood. These mysterious ancient beings, mixed breeds of fallen angels and human DNA. How did they return after the flood? Then when God saved Israelites, brought him out of slavery to the land of Canaan, what happened? Who did they see? Tribes of Nephilim. This raises the question, how is it possible that they were there after the flood? How is it possible that the Nephilim survived the flood, or how did they return after the flood when everything was wiped out? According to the Bible, except Noah, his family, and the animals on the ark, this is only one of the many intriguing mysteries of the Bible, of Scripture. For centuries, one of the most fascinating and enigmatic questions in biblical history has been the identity of the Nephilim. Let's take a deep dive into the Scriptures and unravel the truth behind the Nephilim. Evidence in Scripture. Genesis 6 verse 4. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. Nephilim were there after those days. Bible says that all flesh, everything died in the flood, except for Noah and his family and the animals on the ark. Genesis 7 verses 21 to 23 says, "And all flesh died that moved on the earth. Birds, livestock, beasts, all swarming creatures that swarm on the earth, and all mankind. Everything on the dry land in whose nostrils was the breath of life died." That is clear. They were blotted out from the earth. Only Noah was left, and those who were with him in the ark. Then, as you continue to read the Bible, and you see that all the nations started to spread over the face of the earth, and then you see the nation of Israel being brought forth, and then of course they were slaves in Egypt, but then when God saved them, brought them out of slavery to the land of Canaan, what happened? Who did they see? The Nephilim. For about who were Nephilim? Evidence about the traits of Nephilim after flood with names was there in part 1 of this video. Let's proceed with the question, how is it possible that they were there after the flood? Well, there's a few theories. Let me mention 3 of them. Theory 1. The Nephilim may have re-emerged because a second wave of fallen angels repeated the sin described in Genesis 6 verses 1 to 4. This theory suggests that the Nephilim re-emerged because fallen angels might have again corrupted humanity after the flood just like before. While the Bible doesn't explicitly say this, some believe it's possible that these rebellious beings repeated their actions, reducing more Nephilim in the post-flood world. Now this could be true. So this group of angels, it could have been a different group of fallen angels that started to overstep their boundaries, because we do know that those fallen angels in Genesis, before the flood, overstepped their boundaries, slept with the women on earth to create the Nephilim. They were judged by God. How were they judged? They were chained up. They were not allowed to still continue on the earth. They were chained up because of their sexual sin. Now read Jude 1 verse 6 with me. "And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day." This specific group of fallen angels. In verse 7, just as Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding cities which likewise indulged in sexual immorality. Here Sodom and Gomorrah also indulged in sins which is similar to this fallen angels, which is sexual immorality. If we read the Old Testament, we also understand in Sodom and Gomorrah, we also understand this period where there were people who wanted to sleep with angels. Jude says here, which likewise indulged in sexual immorality and pursued unnatural desires, serve as an example by undergoing a punishment of eternal fire. So because of second wave of corrupted fallen angels, they might have emerged again. If you are till here, do subscribe to this channel. Another theory about them is that the Nephilim DNA, it came from the wives of the sons of Noah. The Bible does say that Noah was righteous. We don't know anything about wives of his sons, where they really come from. We only read about their descendants with their husbands Ham, Shem, and Japheth, but nothing about them. So, It is possible. We also know the descendants of Ham became evil quickly, especially when we look at Nimrod, who is called Enmerkar in ancient Sumerian, described as a mighty man. Nimrod Enmerkar is also called the first mighty man after the flood. He was a giant of a man and who was the first world leader after the flood. When we look at the descendants of Ham, we see the Canaanites, the Philistines, Goliath, his brothers, and those tribes, those people had giants. What the Israelites of Canaan, right? They saw Nephilim and felt like grasshoppers to those giants, the descendants of the Nephilim, the sons of Anak. Third theory. Some Nephilim may have physically survived the flood by hiding in remote areas, such as high mountains or caves. While Bible clearly emphasizes that all living creatures on dry land perished, the possibility of a remnant surviving in inaccessible places isn't explicitly ruled out. The Bible is clear that the flood wiped out all living beings not on the ark, Genesis 7 verse 23. This theory relies on extra-biblical sources or interpretation. Some theologians suggest that the mention of Nephilim post-flood may not refer to literal descendants, but rather to tribes adopting the name as a symbol of power or fear. Why does these fallen angels commit sin with daughters of men? They were wicked, that was the reason they were fallen, and they also wanted to corrupt the bloodline through which Jesus could be born later. The persistence of Nephilim-like figures after the flood, like Goliath, King Og, may ultimately remain a mystery tied to divine providence and judgment. Isaiah 55 verses 8 to 9 reminds us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord." The existence of Nephilim post-flood could be part of a larger divine plan or a consequence of human and angelic rebellion. The survival or return of the Nephilim after the flood is a complex topic with no definitive answer in Scripture. Each theory has strengths and challenges, leaving room for faith, interpretation, and ongoing study. As Christians, the key is to focus on the overarching message of the Bible, God's sovereignty, judgment, and plan for humanity, while exploring such mysteries with humility and reverence.